Hey, Harry, thanks so much for being on the show. Can you please introduce yourself to our audience and kind of give a brief overview of your background, particularly starting in Peru and maybe how you ended up in the United States?
Yes, Kevin, thank you. First, thanks so much for having me here in your show. Very excited about it. My name is Harry Nima Zegarra. I'm a physician, a pulmonary and critical care doctor. My wife, she's also a physician. She's a family medicine doctor. Actually, we both are from Peru. We're from South America. We were born there, and we did also, like all our school and medical school over there. We came here to the US when we were almost 30 years old to continue our education, our training. So we finished our medical school over there, and of course we wanted to have better opportunities, have better training, and also like to live here in the US. So it took us a couple of years. I mean, it's like a long process. Like you need to take several tests and actually also come to the US, like initially for rotations, what we call also externships, also interviews, like any other job, and like at the end you apply, right? Like so, it took us like a couple of years to come here to the US, and then once we came here, it's like also another process, right? Like because you start here. In the residency, then like you need to decide if you want to do extra training, extra specialization. So because of the nature of that, you keep traveling and moving like every couple of years, every 3 or 4 years. But yeah, so I mean, like we initially came like and lived for 3 or 4 years in Pennsylvania. Then because of my training, like I decided to go for pulmonary critical care fellowship. I did also 3 years in Virginia. And then like after that, we moved to Texas, right? Like initially we were like 2 years in private practice
Mhm.
in South Texas. And then we decided to move here to Dallas where we live now. And the main reason was because we had friends here and my wife has family, and we were looking for other opportunities here in Dallas.
That's awesome. And I do want to back it up a little bit. I know you grew up in Peru, and you mentioned in an interview you did, you mentioned that your parents invested in real estate there. And so I think that was like where the first seed for you in real estate was planted. I would love to know, I believe they owned a hotel in Peru. And I would love to know, I mean, that's so unique because it's just not very often that people I have on the show kind of their parents started in real estate in some capacity. But not only that, you came from another country that might be traditionally seen as a less like opportunities available specifically within real estate. So I'd love it if you could kind of touch on the principles that you learned growing up, whether that's real estate related or passive income related.
Yes, absolutely. So at the early age, my parents got divorced. So my sister and I, we got to live with my mom. So she didn't have the opportunity to go to college or like to receive higher education. So kind of similar with the rest of my family. So they were in different business and doing different endeavors and trying to find different ways to help us, right? Like to get through education and to have like a better life. So one of the things you probably heard about that, like that she invested in real estate among other things too. Yeah, and sometimes I tell like the story about like the hotel, and many people would can think like, oh, it's like a hotel, like a Hilton or Sheraton. I mean, it's not like that. I mean, it's actually like a small, really tiny hostel, like, right? Like I mean actually like initially she bought that when it was in construction, and we didn't know that. I mean, it was zoned for a hotel, right? Like I mean it could have been just a building of offices, or like she could just put like some people to live in there long term, or something like that. But I mean, like the place was close to a hospital, so we decided, and many people from other places were traveling there, like in order like to receive medical care, usually short term, right? Like what we have here, like in the US, the short term rentals, right? Like so, she looked at that, and she decided to start a small business. I mean, like of course it took some time because again, like the place was under construction, right? Like so, and in Peru is not necessarily like here, like that you go to the bank and you take a loan, and the loan is great, like a 5% interest rate, right? You know, like in developing countries, the risks associated with this type of business are higher, right? Like, so, I mean, someone here would think, oh, it's crazy, like the rates over there. Yeah, but at some point, the rates over there were 15 or 20%, like for real estate, which is very, very difficult, like to do it, to run any business with that kind of interest rate, right? But so in Peru, what we usually do is like, so we continue working, we get some money, we put that money in the business, and that way we continue growing, right? I mean, she
Mhm.
couldn't get like a loan for that. So I mean, it took a couple of years until she was able like to fully build like the small house. Hotel over there. So and then like she was able to surround herself with other people who were helpful, like who were friends of the family, and together we were able like to run that place, right?
Yeah.
Like again, like in any business, like you need to do a lot of work up front, right? Like the first couple of years were like a lot of work, but then after a couple of years, you start seeing like the benefits of real estate, right? Like I mean, like she was going, she had someone who she trusts over there, and she would go every week or every weekend, like to get like the cash flow like the hotel was making,
Yeah.
right? And over time, I mean, like we sometimes feel like the cycles here like 5, 6, 7 years. I mean, it took for us like probably like 15 or 20 year cycle. Like, so we were very patient about that, right? Like, and we were able to see how real estate had appreciated there.
That's awesome, and a lot of gold nuggets there. I appreciate you sharing that. Now, to kind of just fast forward to where you are today, or more in the country in the U.S., you are now a doctor and you're a physician, and you're making high income after years of going to school and really working towards that. So I actually was recently with some people who had graduated from from med school, and they're doctors now, and it's really interesting to kind of talk with you and then kind of talk with someone else who you're in a similar position, except you are you understand the importance of investing in real estate, and other people, they've kind of worked towards becoming a doctor, and so they're kind of coasting now because they're like, oh, I put in the work, I get to enjoy the benefits of being a doctor. Can you touch on what I mean, obviously your mother's background investing in real estate, that kind of sparked your interest, but what made you want to start investing in real estate right now, and why is the income you're making, shouldn't that be enough?
Yes. So one important concept is like again, like it's very important to think about how much money we make, but also how much money we take at the end of the day, right? Like I mean, like something very important is like the taxes that we need to pay every single year. And for many professionals, high income earners, we usually tell or say like, so we need to work until April or May just to pay our taxes, and that's amazing. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's a very very high debt that we need to pay every year. So and yeah, so like we when we came to the US, we were primed for real estate. We were very interested about that. We continue our education because again we had some background and some knowledge about real estate, but in our country, not here in the US. So for us, it was more difficult to understand how is the process and how to leverage again like money and others people time, right? Like so we as I was in training initially, I couldn't do that much, and we also were moving every 3 years. But once we came to Dallas, I mean, it was a no-brainer for us like to start doing real estate, right? Like so, and why so many people sometimes they don't necessarily think about alternative ways of investing, and not just necessarily just real estate, but other ways of investing, right? Like you trade your time for money all the time, and sometimes because of that you just have one source of income. And this started like to open our eyes, right? Like, and it was even more important during the pandemic, where again, like my wife and I are physicians, high income earners. However, what would happen if anything would happen to us, right? We were in a very difficult position, right? And my wife and I were actually in the front line. She was a primary care doctor, and I was a home critical care and dealing with these COVID patients in the ICU every day. So again, like we discovered again that we only had one source of income, right? Like so, we start working on alternative passive income, like in order like to help us again, like to build our wealth, but also like to get more security.
Mhm. Absolutely, and I can relate to that. I mean, we just that's what we're aiming for, that freedom from money and financial freedom, and that's why we got into real estate. And obviously, we never really had a career, so I think that's where it differs because we were able to get into it straight from school. So that's just really interesting perspective that you offer. Now, I'd love to know, can you provide some context? I know you got into single family investing. So could you kind of dive into what your journey was in the single family space? I believe you did some BRRRRs. So if you could explain what the BRRRR strategy is and how you used that to start building a portfolio in the single family space.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And again, like it's why many physicians don't understand or don't invest in real estate or alternative ways of investing is because of lack of education, right? And why, in my case, I also started doing single family houses and not what I'm doing in this moment, commercial real estate. It's probably also because of lack of education, because like what everyone knows, like when you start in real estate, it's usually single family houses, go to the MLS, do flips or do long-term rentals. However, I mean, I'm very grateful and we were very lucky to get started like that way, because again, that's the way we started. I mean, otherwise or like otherwise we wouldn't have started in real estate, right? Like, so it took some time again, like because of our training and the nature of our training that we were moving every couple of years. But when we came to Dallas, we decided first like to buy our primary home and then to start investing in single family houses, right? Like, so our first house was not like the best deal ever. And it's okay like that, right? Like, so we bought like a property through MLS and with a friend of us who was a realtor. The deal itself, like if you run the numbers, may have not been like the best deal, but again, we were very grateful because that's the way we started, right? Like, so we wanted like to keep growing. Like, our initial thought process was we can buy a single family house every year. Like in 10 years from now, we're going to be like in a good place. And initially, like the way we were buying that, again, like as the market was very competitive here, even like a couple of years ago was very competitive in Dallas Forward. The first house we bought was all cash. And actually it was through the MLS, right? Like, so, and then we put a tenant there, right? Like, so doing it that way is kind of like it's not necessarily like a bad way to do it. It's a safe way to do it,
Mhm.
but you cannot leverage fully your time and your money with that, right? Like, so, and initially we were actually self-managing the property. 3 months after that, the AC broke, and we were in a very difficult position because again, all our cash flow went away, right? Like even like like again, having like paid like the house full. I mean, like like an AC cost a couple of $1,000s, right? And all our rent was there, right? So we took the decision after a couple of months to hire a property manager. And many people would say like, why would you do that? Again, like you only have one property, right? Like, but again, like our time was way more valued in that moment that could be doing other things, right? Like,
Yeah.
and you that you're in real estate too, you understand the value of time, right? Like
Mhm.
you can make a lot of money, but the value of time is more important, right? So and actually that relationship was very important for us because that property manager, he introduced us to off-market properties, right? Like, and for many people, they don't understand the off-market properties, right? Like, so you understand that very well, because I understand you guys also have been doing some wholesaling and all of that. So yeah, so 95% of all the houses in the US are sold through MLS, through the regular ways, right? Like, and only 5% are sold off market. And someone would say, but it's only 5%. Still, it's a lot of houses, right?
Oh yeah.
Right? So there's a lot of market out there, like especially for investors, right? Like, so you try to work with other people, with property managers, with wholesalers, even with brokers sometimes, right? Like, and you try to find these distressed houses or distressed properties for very different reasons, right? Like, I mean, like either the property cannot be financed, or there's like a tenant there that is not paying, that is a problem tenant, that maybe is a relative from the owner, or the owner has a divorce and needs to sell the house super quickly, right? Like, so we help each other, right? Like, I mean, like the seller has a necessity, the investor also needs to buy a house and try to make a profit from there. The wholesaler or the intermediary also helps both people, right? Like, so like everyone gets something out of there, right? Like, so we used to get these off-market properties. Most of them, they were having some structural problems that needed to be fixed, right? And you can
Yeah.
imagine, right? Like a physician, a full-time physician with a wife is also a full-time physician doing
Hmm.
these things. But we were very passionate about that, and we really like it. So yeah,
Yeah.
so we were acquiring these properties, and that's where you mentioned like the Burr method.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And so the Burr method, I believe it is buy, renovate, rent out, and then you refinance and repeat that. Is that right?
Repeat.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the Burr method. Yes.
Awesome. And so, I do want to mention, we were also starting in single family, like you touched on earlier. So we were wholesaling and flipping. And I think we had this misconception, which I think the majority of people have this misconception about real estate, where it's what they see on HGTV. So like flipping and things like that. I didn't even know what wholesaling was. And that's kind of the paradigm I was thinking in is, oh, I have to work with houses. And then I got into the apartment space. But you're so right. I don't regret starting there. It was, you learn the foundations of real estate there. And if we hadn't done that, we would have never gone into apartment investing. So,
Absolutely.
so that's awesome. And you mentioned the multitude of ways that you were able to source deals in the single family space. Even though the majority of transactions might happen on the MLS, there's a 5% of them that don't. Can you kind of expand on how you were finding those sources of deals in terms of the wholesalers? Because just for people that maybe want to eventually get into commercial real estate in our audience, but they might not have the money. I think investing in single family, whether you're flipping or wholesaling or building rentals and then building wealth over time, I think it's a great way to start in single family and then scale your way up. So can you kind of touch on how you were sourcing those deals and yeah, those leads?
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. So, so one is for example, property managers, right? Like, I mean, like you have your property manager, and he manages your houses, but he's also managing probably another 100 or 200 houses, right? Like, and not all owners are happy with having long-term rentals at some point, right? I mean, you may be energetic, you may be young, you may be passionate about real estate, but then after 1 or 2 decades that may change, right? So there's some people who want to get rid of their properties. There's also, like, again, wholesalers, right? Like, again, like they look for these properties through different ways, right? Like, and actually, like, I believe that they provide a service, like, to the people who are in this difficult situation, right? Like, again, like I mentioned, they may have like a house that cannot be solved through MLS because they have important issues, important structural problems, and cannot be financed, like the most importantly, right? Like, so they act like the intermediaries, right? Like, there's also this other for example, Facebook groups, like that every city or every town has, like that you just type off market properties, and you're going to find many people are there, wholesalers or brokers or property managers or even contractors who have worked with landlords that know where to find these other properties, right? Like, so again, it takes time, but with some research, with some effort, you can find these people that can help you acquire these off-market properties. And there's one also that I'm forgetting, also meetups, right? Like, again, like these real estate meetups where you go, where there's other real estate investors, you're going to find other people there, right? Like, you're going to find brokers, owners, you're going to have contractors, you're going to have wholesalers. That's very important.
That's awesome. And so and for us, moving to multifamily, more aligned with our long-term goal of retiring our mom and just building wealth and scaling quickly. And we didn't get into it when we first learned about it because we had limiting beliefs about, you needed money, experience, and just the track record to get into that space. But once we kind of removed those, we were able to break into it. So I'd love to know, this is kind of like a multifaceted question. First, obviously you were having success in the single family space. So why did you even think to pursue multifamily? What were some issues that you were facing in the single family space that maybe made multifamily more appealing to you? And then can you also dive into why multifamily specifically?
Yes, absolutely. So you can understand, my wife and I are full-time professionals.
Yeah.
So even starting like with the first single family home was a challenge, but we like it. I mean, and we were passionate about that, and that's why we put the hours there, right? Like, so and with our property manager and with other people who help us to acquire more properties. Again, we were acquiring more and more properties, and you may say like we were successful doing that, and we were happy with that. However, one way or another, I mean, it's a lot of work, right? Like, and it's active real estate investing. It's not passive, right? Like, so you're gonna need to put many hours there every week, right? And even if you have a property manager, we find ourselves every week talking with him back and forth, like about like different small or big problems about this property, right? And at the end of the year, you find yourself with a lot of paperwork that you and only you are the responsible for that, right? Like things about like insurance, taxes, and go and file for your taxes and things like that, right? Like, and one of the important things is, again, like all the decisions, all the responsibilities and liabilities are on you and only on you when you are in single family houses. Also, have to mention when you get to certain point of properties, then the finance gets tricky, right? You can understand like banks are going to loan you like up to 10 properties. So if you think about like 10 properties you, 10 properties your wife, if everything goes fine, and then you go to the next level, that is like commercial loans, which is more expensive, and then like your margins are less, right? Like, and all of that is a lot of work. It's a lot of work, right? Like, which we were not afraid of the work, but it was getting more and more. And you can imagine, again, like with full-time jobs and two boys, like 6 and 10 years old, very active in sports, it was going to be very difficult, right? Like,
Absolutely.
so that's when we decided like to transition to commercial real estate, and specifically more multifamily.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I'd love to know, for us, when we decided multifamily was the way, we immediately knew we needed a mentor and we needed someone because we didn't have the track record, but maybe we could leverage someone else's. And we, after doing some bigger pocket surfing, that's how we came across the group that we were both part of. But I would love to know, what were some of the first steps that you took to get into multifamily, and what were some challenges of doing that?
Yes. And you just mentioned that. I mean, you were just talking about like you guys being young. And even though you guys have a lot of experience and you have a lot of knowledge, you having that problem about your like your age and not having in commercial real estate before is pretty much the same for me. Pretty much the same. Even, I mean, you can be an accomplished professional or have or not a lot of money or whatever, but if you haven't been in commercial real estate, you are a newbie, right? Like, so
Right.
you're going to face like the same problems, right? Like, so when we were doing our research for about 6 months because we knew that there was so many ways to invest in real estate, right? We just wanted to find like the best way that we can invest to some degree passively too, but also free of our time and something to that would adjust to our lifestyle, right? Like, so we're talking with different people, and we came to the conclusion that we really wanted to do commercial real estate, multifamily, and specifically syndications in real estate, right? So we talked with many people, and again, we came to the conclusion that if you think about commercial real estate and multifamily, is a very broad business, right? Like, so it's very time demanding. It's a full-time job, and many people are doing this full-time for a long time. So we were not going to be able like to compete with them, right? Like two physicians that have done a couple of houses, it was a no-brainer that we didn't have a chance, right? Like, so talking with one investor, he told me, I mean, like, if you want to get to the space, you either need one of these three things, right? Like, either you have time, or you have a good network in commercial real estate, or you have some capital to invest in yourself and maybe like to go into a mentorship, right? Like, so at the end, that's what we do, right? Like, so we end up going into a mentorship that we are very proud to share like the same mentor as you guys.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I do want you to expand on that, because let's say for someone in the audience who doesn't have, maybe they don't have the time or the money. No, sorry, they don't have the network or the money. What advice would you give them? Because let's say that they're starting with little money and they don't have the network. They maybe don't know anyone in commercial real estate. What advice would you give them?
Yes, it also takes time, right? Like, so, I mean, like we were, and thankfully we were here in Dallas Fort Worth, where it's the capital of commercial real estate,
Mhm.
I believe, in the US, where every weekend there's something going on, like
Yeah.
either like a meetup or a big conference, right? Like I think like we just were in a conference with Marquini and Think Multifamily like a month ago. Like in a month there, now it comes like Michael Blank, and then like Brad Samrock. So different people, and there's a lot of things going on here,
Yep.
right? But again, like you need need to put some time, right? Like even though we join a mentorship and an investing group, we still needed to put our time and effort, right? Like so, I was doing my research like for 3-4 months to 5 months, trying to find the best mentorship for us, right? Like and we talk with many people, and again, like all the big names, you name it, like we know about them, right?
Mhm.
So but we went with Mark and Think Multifamily because we really like how he works. Like, and again, like he was also local for us. That also saved us a lot of trips. Like
Mhm.
I mean, all his conferences are here.
Yeah.
So we love that. And yeah, I mean, like so so one of the things and advice that sometimes I give to people when they want to, when they may have problems with time or a full-time job, is that still you're going to need like to put a lot of time there, right? Like
Yeah.
so again, like you just need to be honest with yourself, right? Like I mean, it's not just to join an investing group or a mentorship group and you have done everything now, like, and everything is easy, right? Like
Mhm.
so when you join a group, like the work just starts actually,
Yeah.
right? Like and again, you need to be consistent. I mean, it doesn't happen like immediately. Like so even in the group, no one knows you yet, right? Like so you need to get out there, you need to knock doors, you need to call people and be out there for other people.
That is so true. We always say that when you like getting into one of these groups, it's like you paying to get into a room, but no one's going to come up and talk to you. You have to kind of put yourself out there, like you said, and walk up and introduce yourself. And that's so true. That's awesome that you shared that. I would love to know, maybe not necessarily anything specific about any one group, but what did you look for in a mentorship, and what advice would you give to other people to look for when they're looking for their own mentor? Because that's a question we get a lot, is, what to look for in a mentor, where to go to look.
Yes. So in terms of education, I believe like most of the education you can even find for free in YouTube, like learning audiobooks or things like that, right? Like it's more about like the people who are in that group, right? Like you need to find yourself with other people that you feel like you can trust, you have like the same beliefs of you, and you feel like you can work together with other people. Because if you think about when you embark yourself in this journey or in these projects, you're going to be with someone for 5 to 6 years, right? Like so again, like that's one of the most important things, and that's why it took me some time like to finally decide for one or another investing group.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Now it's a little transition. You are obviously a physician and a doctor. I would love to know, and you've mentioned this in the past, and it's something I've heard. Simon, doctors are some of the most educated people in our society, but I've heard you mention that they're not necessarily financially educated. I would love to know, is that the case? And if so, can you expand on why that is?
Yes, and even it was the case with me. Yeah, I mean, like because again, the only thing I knew initially was about single family houses, right? Like, so we're very educated, and again, like, but at the same time, we're very specialized in our education, right? Like, and I'm very happy to feel now like I see more and more physicians getting out there and getting educating in other things other than medicine, have like other interests in life, right? Like, because we you cannot have just one dimensional life, right? So we spent many years of our life in the classrooms, in training, many hours. And yeah, so I mean, after that, and unfortunately, there's no formal financial education in school or in college or in medical school, right? Like, so when you leave that, you think your life is solved, it's you have done it all. However, you leave medical school and you find yourself that still you need to do more and more training for 3 to 6 years, and still you have a lot of debt. And then like when you finish, you may have already a family, you may want to buy a house, and you may want to start a practice. So I mean, all this load over you, I mean, just to get started. And many people would think like, so I have so much on my plate that I just need to start working and working and working, and hey, like I have a good paying job, so it like it will do the work. But at the end, you're just chasing your tail and that. So and that's what happens, right? Like and again, like we tend to invest in what we're familiar with or what we know, right? Like and most of what we know is just stocks or mutual funds or 401k retirement funds, right? So that's what we do, right? Like and we think that real estate is more like for the people in HGTV, or just like to to be on TV or doing these things. But I mean, like there's other ways. I mean, like, and again, as we mentioned before, not just even real estate, there's other things like ATMs, energy, like different things.
Yeah, 100%. And I know you guys are also, as doctors, you're in one of the highest tax brackets as well, so you get taxed heavily. And I know that you guys, you and your wife, I believe your wife is aiming to become a real estate professional. I was really interested in, I heard you mention that in a podcast, because a lot of people think the benefits of investing in real estate passively, you'll be able to offset taxes on your W-2 income. But I believe that isn't the case. And so I would love it if you could I know you're not a CPA, so this is not tax
Yeah.
advice, but from your experience, what are some of the guidance that you've given people or your investors, or in regards to that, in terms of when they invest passively in a deal, they're not necessarily going to get certain tax benefits, and they are going to get certain other ones. And why is it also appealing for you and your wife to get that real estate professional status?
Yes, yes. So real estate is great, right? I mean, like either you invest actively or passively. Either you invest in single family houses or you invest in multi-million dollar apartment complexes, right?
Yeah.
And even I was a witness of that when I started like investing in single family houses, right? Like with single family houses, you have the depreciation, right? Like, and there's some occasions that you can also do other things called cost segregation in single family houses, especially when you go for short-term rentals, which
Mhm.
is a little bit more information about that. But yeah, so in multifamily, you can also do depreciation, but there's other tools like again like to try to take advantage of those taxes in the first 5 to 6 years, right? Like what I just mentioned, cost segregation and bonus depreciation, which is mainly paper losses, right? So
Mhm.
mainly paper losses that helps you offset most of or all of the cash flow during the first 4 or 5 years, right? Like, but that's something that I always tell my investors, right? Like, go and talk with your CPA, go and talk with your financial advisor, because Uncle Sam or the IRS, they are going to defer taxes, but they are not necessarily going to forget about it, right? So
Mhm.
they need to plan for depreciation, recapture, and for capital gains when we're going to sell the property. And again, there are options, right? Like unfortunately, real estate gives you different options, right? Like so that's why we advise our investors. Now, like the topic about like the real estate professional is also great, right? Like so it doesn't need necessarily to be you, but if you have a spouse that has some time and can put the hours, right? Again, like I'm not a CPA for advice, right? But if he or she can claim the reps real estate professional status, that's going to help not only your passive income, but also your active income, right? And that's going to be a game changer, because that's going to be able like to lower your tax bracket a lot.
Yeah, and just curious, what are you guys doing to get that real estate professional status? Is in terms of like the actions you guys are taking?
Yes, yes. So again, like as you mentioned, that's very correct. Like my wife has been a family physician for a long time, and just recently she decided to take a break and like in her clinical job, like November last year.
Mhm.
So we're talking like every week and trying to see what to do, thinking of the future, right? Like in couple of weeks ago, like a month ago, we talked about why don't we do this together? I mean, like it would be great, just again, like she's my wife,
Mhm.
we are here all the time, to even work together in real estate, right? Like so she's gonna join Nima Equity and
Nice.
and she's gonna be starting to do some underwriting, but also because we were very blessed to go into a contract like with one property here in the Dallas Fort Worth area. She may be helping and being very active with the asset management.
Oh,
So that's going to help us a lot.
that's awesome. I love to hear that. And I do want to get into where you guys are today in your business, but just to kind of back it up, what was your first deal? I believe you're a steward of other people's capital when you raise capital from your investors. So I know you were looking at multiple deals before you got that first one that you felt comfortable getting your investors' money into. Can you kind of walk us through that process, and also maybe mention some of the challenges on that first raise and what that first raise was like?
Yes, yes. So we talk with different people because again, it's very different and the mindset is different. when you're using your own money than when you're using others people's money, right? Like, and even though I mean, like the first batch of investors are usually your friends, your colleagues, your family. I mean, and they trust in you, and there's a good relationship in you. Still, it's their money. It's not your money. It's their hard-earned money, right? Like, and it's very difficult, like, to get in that mindset that, again, like, you're helping there, but them, but at the same time, you need to be careful on how you use your money, right? Like, so again, like, we were talking with different people, but we were lucky that we joined a project very quickly after we joined the investment group. So, and after that, we have been like already like in five projects. Has been a very amazing journey this last
Yeah.
year.
That's awesome. And was it easy for you to raise capital that first time? Did you kind of already have that network of people, or I know you had that identity as a doctor and a physician. So was there any challenges bringing them this real estate opportunity and saying, I'm also investing in real estate?
Yeah, that's spot on, actually. For years, that we were in real estate for 4 or 5 years and doing single family houses. I didn't share that much about that because, again, like, the thought process is that physicians should be only be physicians and lawyers only lawyers, right? Like, so you have that problem with your mindset, like, in, hey, like, if I tell this to other people, they may think I'm not serious anymore in medicine, or what is a physician doing in real estate? I mean, like, are you crazy, or things like that? But yeah, I mean, like, at some point we decided just to go out there and share our journey. And actually we found ourselves with a lot of great feedback, like, and people who were very happy with us, and they wanted to hear more about our story, right? Like, so in our first race, actually, it was challenging in the sense that it was a super quick race and it was closed, like, I think in 4 days. But still we were able, like, to deliver what we promised to the lead sponsor, and like in that project. So, and the reason was because we had been talking with our friends, colleagues, and family, like, already for I think at least 6 months, and they knew that we were in real estate, and they knew that we were growing and we were responsible with our money. So when we decided, like, to embark in commercial real estate, and we shared that news, and we said, like, we may bring investors with us, they were on board. And like, again, like, that requires also a lot of trust
Mhm.
other people to you, but yeah, we're very blessed to have those investors.
That's awesome. You mentioned you've been a part of 5 deals, I believe, so far. You also mentioned your wife's underwriting and she might be on the asset management side. So can you provide just some insight into where your business is at today? Are you guys just focusing on raising capital, or are you also starting to look for your own deals? Can you just provide some context there?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So, yeah, like, our company, Nima Equity. So, I mean, we started this like about like a year and a half ago.
Mhm.
So you think about, like, we're still like a very young company, right? Early company. We haven't even gone, like, through full cycle even
Mhm.
once, right? So we lean on our experts, like, again, like, who are the other syndicators, right? Our main um, point, or our main role has been in the capital raise. We also participate in other small things, like, again, like, investor relationships, asset management calls. We want to go to due diligence, sometimes, like, help with earnest money. But, like, again, our main participation has been with the capital raise, and it's because of our background, and, again, like, our network, that we have other friends who are physicians and also want to invest passively in real estate, right? And this is something that I actually, it took me some time to realize. When you start in a new journey, right? Like commercial real estate, sometimes you get too excited, right? Like, so I'll say, like, hey, I want to do everything, right? Like, I mean, I want to do this and this, I want to do absolutely everything. But you need to be honest with yourself, right? Like, so as I mentioned at the beginning, this is for people who have been doing this full time and for a long, long time. We're not going to be able to compete with them, right?
Mhm.
So, and we'll be doing a disservice to our investors if we try to compete with them. It's better, like, to work in teams, right? Like, a multifamily is a team sport. So, right, like, so my wife, again, like, it's starting to do a little bit of underwriting, and we plan to partner up with other members of our investment group to go together, right? Like, and the asset management that she's planning to do, again, we're going to do with other members together.
Yeah.
We're going to grow together.
I completely agree. It's all multifamily. I think even more so than single family is a team sport, and so it's something that was definitely a shift for us to make. But it's honestly so much more fun and more fulfilling when you can focus on what you're good at and what you actually like doing. So it's about time for our speed round. Harry, are you ready?
All right, I'm ready.
Awesome, awesome. There's just quick 4 to 5 questions that I like to ask every guest on the show. The first
All right.
one: what has been the biggest failure or learning lesson that you've had throughout your real estate experience, and what did you take away from that?
Yes. So lesson it would be like again like to try to start earlier in real estate, right? Like again like you always have these limiting beliefs. Like again, I'm in training. I don't have the time. Oh, I'm sorry about that.
No problem. No
I'm
problem.
sorry.
No problem. No problem.
It's gonna be my kids. I'm sorry about that.
No, no, you're
Uh,
good.
so like the limiting the limited beliefs, and also again like to try to find other people who you may trust like in this business. That's very important.
Awesome. Awesome. And so I would love to know, what is your long-term vision for the business and what are you aiming to accomplish moving forward?
Yeah, so long term, we of course want to continue growing. We want to continue being partners with our investors. We invest in every single deal that we go with our investors, and we want to develop a long term relationship with them.
That's awesome. I would love to know, what is your why? What motivates you? I think you touched on it, but can you expand on that?
Yes, our only why is our family, right? So again, like we are professionals, high earners, and all of that, but we find ourselves many times like dealing with again like a lot of work, working and inappropriate times, right? Like on the weekends, at night, during birthdays, and again, like you can always work later, you can always make money later, but time is not coming back.
So wise, and you shared a ton of wisdom today. If there was one piece of advice or wisdom you'd want our audience to walk away with from this episode, what would that be?
Yeah, so again, like that everyone can do it, right? Like if you guys are able to do it, if I'm able to do it, like I think like you just need to have the passion, you just need to put the effort and time and go out there.
Absolutely. And if anyone in our audience wants to learn more about you, Harry, get access to any of your resource, follow you on social media, or just follow you along your journey, where can they go to do that?
Yes, thank you. So we have our company, as I mentioned, is Nima Equity, nimaequity.com, and as in Nancy, IMA equity.com. We have also our YouTube channel that I'll share the link with you, and they can always reach out to us.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time, Harry. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing how you progress and just blow up your business moving forward.
Thank you, Kerwin. I really had a good time. Thanks so much for
Awesome.
having me.
Awesome. Absolutely.